Love is often seen as the ultimate form of connection. From the time we are children, we are told that love is what heals all wounds. We are led to believe that finding the right person will fix everything, that love is the answer to all our deepest desires and insecurities. It is presented to us as pure, selfless, and redemptive. But Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the most honest and radical thinkers in history, didn't see love this way. Nietzsche believed that the love we chase after is not what it seems. To him, love is not a cure for our brokenness. Rather, it's a game we play, often without realizing the rules. He saw that love is not always about healing or giving, but about power, control, and survival. Nietzsche wasn't trying to destroy the idea of love, but to expose the illusions that cloud our understanding of it. We are told that love will save us, that it will make us whole, and that someone out there will make everything right in our lives. But Nietzsche challenges this idea. What if the love we seek isn't a cure at all? What if it is just an illusion that helps us escape the reality of our own weaknesses and fears? Nietzsche argued that many of us turn to love as a way of filling the emptiness inside us, a place we're afraid to look at. Instead of facing the parts of ourselves that need healing, we project them onto others, believing that love will somehow fix them. But love doesn't work this way. It is not a magical solution. The truth, as Nietzsche saw it, is that love often becomes a distraction, keeping us from seeing ourselves clearly and forcing us to rely on others for validation. When Nietzsche looked at human relationships, he didn't see simple partnerships based on mutual affection. What he saw was a constant negotiation for power. We are all trying to get something from each other: affection, approval, attention. And sometimes we don't realize how much of this is driven by our need for control. He believed that love at its core is not a selfless act, but a contest. We are constantly measuring our worth against the other person's. The idea of unconditional love, where one person gives everything without expecting anything in return, is a myth. In reality, we all have our own agendas, our own desires, and our own needs. And in relationships, we often use love as a way to secure what we want. Nietzsche observed that women, especially, had to learn to use influence and strategy in their relationships because they were denied the power that men traditionally held. Women were often not given the same outward control that men enjoyed, so they had to become masters of subtlety. Where men might express their emotions openly, women learned to read the situation, to understand the needs of others, and to position themselves where they could have the greatest influence. This wasn't manipulation, as many might think. It was simply survival. Women learned to navigate the emotional landscape because they had no other choice. They did not have the luxury of brute force. Instead, they used their intelligence and understanding of human nature to influence the world around them. We often think we love the person in front of us, but Nietzsche would argue that we love the version of them that exists in our minds. We love the way they reflect who we want to be, the way they make us feel good about ourselves. But this is not love. It is self-validation. Love, in its purest form, requires us to accept the other person as they are, flaws and all, not as a mirror of our own desires and fantasies. But how many of us actually do this? How many of us fall in love with the idea of a person rather than the person themselves? We fall in love with the image we have created in our minds, and when that image starts to fade, we feel betrayed. But in reality, we were the ones who created that illusion in the first place. The person we thought we loved was never really there. Nietzsche believed that love, in its traditional form, often leads to dependency. When we love someone, we open ourselves up to them in ways that make us vulnerable. But Nietzsche saw this vulnerability not as a noble act, but as a form of submission. We offer our hearts, our time, our energy, not because we want to give freely, but because we fear being without the other person. Our love becomes a bargaining chip. We say, "If I give you everything, will you stay with me? Will you fix what is broken inside of me?" This isn't love. This is emotional dependence. And the worst part is, we don't always realize it. We think we are being selfless, that we are loving purely, but in reality, we are offering everything we have in exchange for something we can't provide for ourselves. Nietzsche recognized that this was a dangerous trap. We give away our power when we rely on others for our sense of self-worth. And the more we give, the more we lose control. This isn't love. It's a power dynamic. And in many relationships, one person holds the power without even realizing it. The one who needs the other person the least is the one who holds the most control. In Nietzsche's view, women's power was often overlooked because it was never overt. Women were taught to operate in the shadows, to use their influence without being obvious about it. This is where men often went wrong. They mistook women's quietness for weakness, their silence for submission. But in truth, women were playing the game of relationships far more skillfully than most men realized. They had learned that the key to power was not in demanding, but in suggesting. They did not need to argue or force their will. Instead, they shaped men's desires, decisions, and actions without ever raising their voices. Nietzsche believed that this was a form of mastery, not manipulation, but an ability to navigate the complexities of human relationships with precision and skill. In this dynamic, men often remained blind to the reality of what was happening. They idealized women, placing them on a pedestal and believing that they were morally superior. But this belief only served to make them more vulnerable. As long as men saw women as angels, they failed to see the strategy behind their actions. Women were not weaker, but different. They were not driven by the same impulses that men were, but by a need to influence, to control, and to survive in a world that often denied them power. Nietzsche's call to men was clear. Stop idealizing love, stop seeing women as saviors, and stop allowing the myths of romantic love to control your life. The truth is uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. To truly love, Nietzsche believed, we must first love ourselves, not in a selfish, egotistical way, but in a way that recognizes our own worth and independence. We must stop relying on others to fix what is broken inside of us, and instead face our own weaknesses head-on. Only then can we move beyond the illusions of love and begin to experience relationships as they truly are, complex, messy, and full of power dynamics that are often hidden from view. Nietzsche wasn't saying that love was meaningless, but rather that we must stop romanticizing it. We must stop seeing it as the answer to all our problems and start seeing it for what it truly is. A relationship of equals, where both parties come to the table not to validate each other, but to truly meet each other as they are. Only then can love become something real, something that doesn't rely on control or dependency, but on mutual understanding and growth. Nietzsche's philosophy is about awakening to the truth of who we are, the truth of our relationships, and the truth of love. It's about recognizing that love is not a simple, selfless act, but a complex, often painful negotiation for power and influence. To truly love, we must first understand ourselves, free from the illusions that have been placed on us. Only then can we break free from the myths that keep us trapped in dependency and control. Nietzsche's call is not to reject love, but to transform it into something more authentic, more real, and more empowering for both partners.